He's so sweet to me. He knows that I was having a bad day today. So he got me stuff to help distract me. And I love him for that. I love you, honey. Got a jar full of meds. I got a breakfast burrito. And I get to do some unboxing. I added things to my collector's wall. I got little tiny half. Is that the Death Planet? What was that called?
Death Star?
Yeah, the Death Star. Their Death Star shells. Star Wars miniatures. Pokemon. I got Pokemon. The super surprise box. Let's see what's in it. It's pretty, that's for sure. Oh, inside it says, unwrap 1 of 9 special foil promo cards and a handful of Pokemon TCG booster packs. The Pokemon TCG Scarlet and Violet Prismatic Evolution surprise box includes 1 of 9 randomly selected foil promo cards with a special logo featuring EX, Vaporeon EX, Jolteon, Flareon, Espeon, Umbreon, Leafeon, Glaceon, or Sylveon EX. 4 Pokemon TCG Scarlet and Violet Prismatic Evolution booster packs. A box to hold everything, with 4 dividers to keep it organized. And a code card for Pokemon TCG Live. And all those booster packs will have their own card for online as well. This is a cute little box. I have so many little boxes.
Hey.
Oh, those are cool dividers. Oh, and they're sideways dividers like that. Ooh. Flareon. Oh, let me show you guys. Flareon. Jolteon. Leafeon. And Umbreon.
What are those things?
Dividers for the cards. They go this way. Instead of the long way like these ones, like the other boxes, this one goes this way, sideways. Which is pretty cool. Put the box to the side. I'm gonna clean this stuff. Oh! My squishy!
Stop it.
What are they doing?
Oh, Obi's trying to play with the power cord.
Oh, what foily did we get? Glaceon EX. Let's see if that one's got. Oh, the Prismatic Evolution specific one. Ooh, I don't have that one. I have a GX, but not this rare EX. It's a Terra card. Ooh, look at that shininess. I need sleeves. She's got Frost Bullet. You need a water and any other color. A water and a colorless. For 110 damage. This attack also does 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. And then there's Eucalyptus, which is a green, a black, and a blue. This one is a 3-color deck. Knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon that is exactly 6 damage counters on it. Whoa. Oh well, it's kind of hard to be exact with that one. see what these packs hold. Pack number 1. Start them off. The music might be a little loud, huh? It's like right in there. Let's turn it down some more. On the main volume source. There we go. That might be better. Alright, pack number 1. Here we go. There's the code. This is probably an energy. Ooh, it's a fire energy. Ooh, it's a foily fire energy. Nice. We like to wrap the foilies. Put that in the fire pile. Then we have, ooh, there's a Glaceon foily. And that's gonna go in the book. That might actually be a double. Pull the book out. It is double. There I have it already, guys. Check that out. But I'm going to slide it in there because I love her. And she's going to go in behind her sister, I guess. Next is Dusknoir Foily. You got a Cursed Blast ability. Once during your turn, you may put 13 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Whoa. If you use this ability, this Pokemon is knocked out, though. 13 damage counters. 1 damage counter equals 10, by the way. So that's 130 damage. His other move, you need 2 Psychic and any other color, and it does 150 damage. And, during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. Next we have... Oh, whoa, that's a cool foily. A Fan Rotom. Ooh, you can even feel it in there. That's cool. It's not just a foily, it's like an engraved, an embezzled foily. That's awesome. Awesome. Color list. Next we have Rigoros. It's another colorless. 4, you need 4 to power that one up. Jewel Breaker. Janina's Secret Art. It's good for dark Pokemon. A Screamtail. Psychic. Says, there has been only one reported sighting of this Pokemon. It resembles a mysterious creature depicted in an old expedition journal. A Milk Tank. Cute little cow color, this Pokemon. A Dreepy, he's a dragon Pokemon. They usually take 2 colors to power up.
Mom, did you know I'm hungry right now?
That's why I feed you the burrito.
I don't want that.
Just a moment. Next card is a Lopunny, colorless. And our last card in this deck, or this pack, is a Friends in Palbia. Allows you to draw 3 cards. We'll be right back. I gotta feed my child. My one and only beautiful miracle child. Alright, back. We're back for a few minutes. Alright. Pack number 2. We got our code. We got an energy. It's a fire one again. Ooh, we got a Noctowl shiny. Got a Jewel Seeker ability. Once during your turn, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, if you have any Terra Pokemon in play, you may search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. He's got 100 HP and he only takes 2 to power up. Oh, a Bronzor Foily. He's a metal Pokemon. Buddy Buddy Puffin Foily trainer card. Says search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon with 70 hit points or less and put them into your bench. Then shuffle your deck. Techno Radar. That's a cool future trainer card. You can use this card only if you discard another card from your hand. Search your deck for up to 2 future Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. Hawlucha. He's a colorless Pokemon. He helps you bring out a Pokemon EX. Oh wait, no, he helps you defeat it. His attack is a 10 plus. It does 50 extra damage if your opponent is a Pokemon EX. Lacey, she's a trainer card. She allows you to shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 4 cards. If your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, you get to draw 8 instead. A Black Belt training. During your turn, attacks using your by your Pokemon do 40 more damage to your opponent's active EX. So that's a good one to fight EX decks with. A Noibat. A little tiny Noibat Pokemon. He's a colorless. Right. Aromatice. It's an evolution from Spiritzee. 120 hit points. Psychic. Takes 2 to power up. Does 60 damage. And leaves the Pokemon confused. Because it's a aroma Pokemon. So it kind of does like a poisonous confusion. And Professor's Research Trainer card. Discard your hand and draw 7 cards. Pack number 3. It's going to be that code again. And a color. Ooh, that one is fighting. No, the first 2 were fire, and we didn't get any fire Pokemon. Well, we got a Dreepy that has to use fire and psychic. So this one is muscle, fighting, earth. Earth is more like the green one. This one's more like, I guess, earth, but more like rock. A Flareon EX Prismatic card. Ooh, I got 2 Prismas. Yeah, look at that, that's shiny. This one is a fire, electric, and water. I have played with these cards in Pokemon Online, so this is amazing that I now have them in my real deck. Or real collection, I guess. Yeah, look at that. She's so pretty. And she's gonna go right in here in this Flareon EX spot. Prismatic, yeah! Alright, next. A Dreepy, this one's the foily version. Ooh, Larry's Skill. This one's a foily trainer. It says discard your hand and search your deck for a Pokemon, a supporter card, and a basic energy card. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. So pretty much you discard your hand and grab 1, 2, 3 cards. And you have to reveal them. And that's your hand. I don't know if I like that card. Hawlucha again. That colorless owl luchador Pokemon. Briar Trainer. You can use this card only if your opponent has exactly 2 prize cards remaining, meaning if you're a loser, you can use this card. During this turn, if your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack used by your Terra Pokemon, take 1 more prize card. So if you use your Terra EX Pokemon to knock them out, you get an extra prize card. Only if they have 2 prize cards remaining. There's that Screamtail again. Only one's been spotted in the wild, but I keep coming up with them, huh? Oh, a Darklock. That's a Dreepy's evolution. It's a dragon. It's a Recon Directive. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one of them into your hand. Put the other card on the bottom of your deck. And he does a Dragon Headbutt for 70 damage. Litleo, little fire lion. There we go. There's our fire Pokemon for the day. Ooh, there's Professor's Research again. And a Cottony. See, there was no fighting Pokemon in there at all. Alright. Last deck. Code card. Energy is a green one. Oh, and it's a foily too. Fingers. These are going in my Vulpix backs. I can't ever play in a competition because then I'd have to I'd have to pick the deck, then unsleeve them all and sleeve them all in the same deck. But maybe I have a whole pack, so I'll just keep one pack that's strictly for if I ever get a chance to go battle competition. Ooh, Groudon foily. Look at that guy. Groudon. That's the fighting Pokemon. There we go. Got that fighter. I can feel it. It's a foily. It's like ridged. Ooh, it's an earthen vessel. Trainer card. You can use this card only if you discard another card from your hand. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards. Reveal them and put them in your hand. It's an earthen vessel, so it's an ancient card that held energy. Because things we have hold energy. Foily Prime Catcher. It's pretty pink too. It's a trainer card, and it says switch in one of your opponent's benched Pokemon to the active spot. If you do, switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched. And you can't have more than one Ace Peck in your deck. This is an Ace Peck card. You can only have one of these. Interesting. It's a new card I've never seen before. Carmine Trainer. If you go first, you may use this card during your first turn, discard your hand, and draw 5 cards. And that is my timer. I need to go flip some nuggets. Alright, we're back for a little bit longer. Those nuggets are flipped. And back in the oven. Timer is set. Next card is a Rigoross again. Colorless Pokemon. Ooh, Area 0 under depth. Seen this one up online. I don't know if I have this one. Each player who has any Terra Pokemon in play can have up to 8 Pokemon on their bench. And there's more to it. Oh, if you lose your Terra Pokemon, you gotta go back down to 5. Oh, and it's an arena card, so everybody's affected, but if the Terra Pokemon in play goes out of play, the benches go down to 5 for both parties. There's a Aromatisse again. A Bronzer. Came across that guy foily earlier. Metal right there. Oh, there's a Pupitar. He evolves from a Larvitar. Fighting Pokemon. And Duraludon. He is a metal dragon. Well, dinosaur. Alright, those are our Pokemon for today. Thank you for joining us. We're going to come back in just a moment and continue with Legos. My honey got me a new Lego set, and it's awesome because it's Snow White. And my mom asked for Snow White baby, and I'm Snow White, and I'm Snow White, yeah. That's all I gotta say to that.
Where the costume? Where's the costume?
Oh, you're right. We'll be right back. I gotta put the costume on. Look, folks. I have the dress. and the cape. And I don't have a red head tie, but I have a white band. And look. There she is. And here I am. Now I'm going to take a big old bite of burrito real quick. Because I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Oh, I get a bracelet. And a little tiny sword. It's a... It's a Snow White song. Alright, I'm gonna load my medicine. Get the first bag out. Bag 1. The Evil Queen. There is but one song, one voice. Oh, I love these old songs. And I remember the words. It's cute. I played Snow White. The first play that I ever played in 7th grade. She was a ditzy princess. It was called Snow White and the Seven Dorks, but she was the total dork. She chewed bubblegum the whole time. She goes, no, the witch said, you should make them. Oh, the audition part was, you had to audition for the Evil Queen and Snow White. Read those lines. Everybody in the whole class did. And then the teacher would determine what parts you played. And so it was, you should try making them an open-faced apple pie. Snow White said, okay, you got any open-faced apples? Get it? You don't make open-faced apple pie with open-faced apples. You just make an apple pie and leave it open-faced. Silly princess. I got the part of Snow White. I had a big old wad of chewing gum in my mouth. My hair was spray painted black. Actually, I didn't have a big wad of chewing gum. I just had a little bit because my mom forgot the chewing gum. That's okay. I love her. She made it to the show, at least. That's more than I could have expected at the time. Bless my mom. Look, there's the watch. Love you, Mom. Alright, let's meet the Evil Queen. Here's her head. Whistle while we work. Oh, and she doesn't even have hair. She just has a crown because she wears a hijab. Full head covering. And then her crown on top of her head. The Evil Queen does. She wears a hijab. Alright, let's make this bracelet. I used to sing this all the time when I'd clean. Whistle while you work. That's why I like to sing and dance when I clean. Actually. To tell the truth. And I can even see the movie in my head. The little animals helping her clean, and the little deer dusting, and dusting all the dust underneath the carpet. And there I have a bracelet. Alright, let's start building the base. Oh, speaking of bases, we gotta go grab those nuggets. Hi-ho, hi-ho, hi-ho. This is when they're dancing, having a little shindig after they find Snow White. They have a party. And she dances with them. They all stand on each other's heads. And have a merry old time. And that's a little piano, and it's little dolls that are whistling. Yep. They're singing about each other. They're Snickers. Snicker! Only one. The magic mirror. We are making the witch's room, so the Wicked Queen. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the ferret stole the mole? Snow White, of course. None 'cause more fair than she. An innocent girl, done no harm to thee.
How old is she even supposed to be in it?
Huh? Snow White? How old is Snow White? Hold on. In the original story. Let's find out.
She slept for a while, but
In the original story, the Brothers Grimm did not explicitly state Snow White's age. However, certain clues within the narrative provide insight into her age range. One such indicator is Snow White's innocence and naivety, which aligns with the characteristics commonly associated with young girls. In Grimm version of the fairy tale, the Snow White is only 7 years old when her beauty eclipses the queen's. In Disney, she's 14. And Prince Florina was 17 to 18 when he met her and she met him. But then she was encased in, and put to sleep for a while. Oh, wait. How long? In the original Grimm fairy tale, she only slept for a day.
oh.
So, and she's a German fairy tale. It was published in 1812. Since then, it has been retold and redone. And the Grimm's fairy tale, they wrote stories from stories that they heard in their travels. So those stories date back even further than the Grimm fairy tales themselves. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
I love literature history.
I like Broomhilda.
Broomhilda?
Yeah.
Is that a Grimm story?
German.
Oh, it's a German legend? Well, let's hear it. What's the German legend?
I don't know, you have to watch Django Unchained.
Oh, I've seen it, but I don't remember all of it. Oh, Broomhilda was the chick that he fucking, like, was obsessively in love with, right? The dentist guy?
No, the dentist guy was the one that told the German story to Django, and Django told he found out because he told him that her name was Broomhilda, and the German guy goes, "That's another German story." That's probably all made up for the story, but
Oh.
the movie.
Oh, look, the mirror is encased in a little window. Cool. There is but one. So they were only like 3 or 4 years apart, apparently, but she was still only 14.
Mm-hmm.
And then, according to the Grimm story, she was 7 when she originally took the beauty. And so, what happened in the Grimm story is she was 7, and the mirror told the queen that she was more beautiful. And so the queen like made her be a slave in her own home. And then when she became of age, of marriageable age, which is like back then it was like 12, 13. Then they tried to have him killed. I don't know. Maybe we should read that story after, or something.
Yeah.
Here, hold on. Where's my Grimm fairy tale book? Oh, I don't have it apparently. Awesome. Put that to the side. It was the middle of winter, and the snowflakes were falling like feathers from the sky, and the queen sat at a window working, and her embroidery frame was of ebony. And as she worked, gazing at times out on the snow, she pricked her finger, and there fell from it 3 drops of blood on the snow. When she saw how bright and red it looked, she said to herself, "Oh, that I had a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the wood of the embroidery frame." Not long after, she had a daughter, with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony, and she was named Snow White. When she was born, the queen died. After a year had gone by, the king took another wife, a beautiful woman, but proud and overbearing, and she could not bear to be surpassed in beauty by anyone. She had a magic looking glass, and she used to stand before it and look in it and say, "Mirror, mirror, a looking glass upon the wall, who's fairest of us all?" And the looking glass would answer, "You are fairest of them all." And she was content. For she knew that the looking glass spoke the truth. Now Snow White was growing prettier and prettier. When she was 7 years old, she was as beautiful as day, far more so than the queen herself. So one day the queen went to her mirror and said, "Looking glass upon the wall, who's fairest of us all?" It had answered, "Queen, you are full fair, 'tis true, but Snow White fairer is than you." This gave the queen a great shock, and she became yellow and green with envy. And from that hour, her heart turned against Snow White, and she hated her. And envy and pride, like ill weeds, grew in her heart, higher every day, until she had no peace, day or night. At last she went for a huntsman. Maybe those are extra pieces. They are. We're in stage 2. Haha. Finished the queen's room. Ta-da. Extra pieces. At last she sent for a huntsman and said, "Take the child out into the woods, so that I may set eyes on her no more. You must put her to death, and bring me her heart for a token." The huntsman consented and led her away. But when he drew his cutlass to pierce Snow White's innocent heart, she began to weep. "No, no, don't hurt me, please." And she'd said, "Oh, dear huntsman, do not take my life. I will go away into the wild wood and never come home again." And as she was so lovely, the huntsman had pity on her and said, "Away with you then, poor child," for he thought the wild animals would be sure to devour her. And it was as if a stone had been rolled away from his heart when he sped to put her to death. Just at that moment, a young wild boar came running by, so he caught and killed it. Taking out its heart, he brought it to the queen for a token, and it was salted and cooked, and the wicked queen ate it, thinking that was the end of Snow White. So at this point in the story, little 7-year-old girl is out in the woods, all by herself. All right. Scared. She was scared, little girl. Now, when the poor child found herself quite alone in the wildwood, she felt full of terror, even at the very leaves on the trees. And she did not know what to do, for fright. And she began to run over the sharp stones and through the thorn bushes, and the wild beasts after her, but they did not harm her. She ran as long as her feet could carry her, and when the evening drew near, she came to a little house. She went inside to rest. I want that little house. I might break down and buy myself that Lego set with taxes.
Which one?
Snow White's cottage with the 7 dwarfs. It's like $300 or something. It's pretty expensive though. Might have to choose between that and my VR. She ran as long as... Okay. She went inside to rest. Everything there was very small, but as pretty and as clean as possible. There stood the little table ready laid and covered with white cloth, and 7 little plates and 7 knives and forks and drinking cups. But by the wall stood 7 little beds side by side, covered with clean white quilts. Snow White, being very hungry and thirsty, ate from each plate a little porridge and bread, and drank out of each little cup a drop of wine, so as not to finish up one portion alone. And after that she felt so tired that she lay down on one of the beds. But it did not seem to suit her. One was too long, another too short, but at last the 7th was quite right, and she laid down upon it, committed herself to heaven, and fell asleep. When it was quite dark, the masters of the house came home. There were 7 dwarfs whose occupation was to dig underground among the mountains. When they had lighted their 7 candles and it was quite light in the little house, they saw that someone must have been in, as everything was not in the same order in which they left it. The first one said, "Who has been sitting in my little chair?" The second one said, "Who has been eating from my little plate?" And the third one said, "Who has taken my little loaf?" And the fourth one, "Who has been tasting my porridge?" The fifth said, "Who has been using my little fork?" The sixth said, "Who has been cutting with my little knife?" And the 7th said, "Who has been drinking from my little cup?" And then the first one, looking round, saw a hollow in his bed and cried, "Who has been lying on my bed?" And the others came running and cried, "Someone has been on our beds too." But when the 7th looked at his bed, he saw little Snow White lying there asleep. And then he told the others, who came running up, crying out in their astonishment, and holding up their 7 little candles to throw a little light upon Snow White. "Oh goodness, oh gracious," cried they, "what beautiful child is this?" And were so full of joy to see her that they did not wake her, but let her sleep on. And the 7th dwarf slept with his comrades an hour at a time with each, until the night had passed. When it was morning and Snow White woke and saw the 7 dwarfs, she was very frightened. But they seemed quite friendly and asked her what her name was. And she told them, and when they asked how she came to be in their house, and she related to them how her stepmother had wished her to be put to death, and how the huntsman had spared her life. And how she had run the whole day long until she had at last found their little house. And the dwarf said, "If you will keep our house for us, and cook and wash, and make our beds, and sew and knit, and keep everything tidy and clean, you may stay with us, and you shall lack nothing." Thanks, Mom. "With all my heart," said Snow White. And so she stayed and kept the house in good order. In the morning the dwarves went to the mountain to dig for gold, and in the evening they came home, and their supper had to be ready for them. All the day long the maiden was left alone, and the good little dwarves warned her, saying, "Beware of your stepmother. She will soon know you are here. Let no one into the house." Now the queen, having eaten Snow White's heart, as she supposed, felt quite sure that now she had the first and fairest. She was the first and fairest, and so she came to the mirror and said, "Looking glass upon the wall, who's the fairest of us all?" And the glass answered, "Queen, thou art of beauty rare, but Snow White, living in the glen with 7 little men, is 1,000 times more fair." Right, the little girl's still 7, living in the woods, with 7 little dwarves protecting her. And then she was very angry, for the glass always spoke the truth, and she knew that the huntsman must have deceived her, and that Snow White must still be living. And she thought and thought how she could manage to make an end of her, for as long as she was not the fairest in the land, envy left her no rest. Well, I guess the little girl could be older than 7, because she was 7 when they said that the queen's heart was overcome with envy, and then the queen couldn't sleep for a long time and she became restless, and then she decided to consult the huntsman. So maybe she's 8. At last she thought of a plan. She painted her face and dressed herself like an old peddler woman, so that no one would have known her. In this disguise she went across the 7 mountains until she came to the house of the 7 little dwarfs, and she knocked at the door and cried, "Fine wares to sell, fine wares to sell." Snow White peeped out the window and cried, "Good day, good woman. What have you to sell?" "Good wares, fine wares," answered she. "Laces of all colors." And she held up a piece that was woven of variegated silk. "I need not be afraid of letting in this good woman," thought Snow White, and she unbarred the door and bought the pretty lace. "What a figure you are, child," said the old woman. "Come and let me lace it properly for once." Snow White, suspecting nothing, stood up before her and let her lace her with the new lace. But the old woman laced so quick and tight that it took Snow White's breath away, and she fell down as dead. Wrong pieces. "Now you have done with being the fairest," said the old woman, as she hastened away. Not long after, that, towards evening, the 7 dwarfs came home and were terrified to see that their dear Snow White lying on the ground without life or motion. They raised her up, and when they saw how tightly she was laced, they cut the lace in two. And then she began to draw a breath, and little by little she returned to life. And then the 7 dwarfs heard what had happened. They said the old peddler woman was no other than the wicked queen. You must beware of letting anyone in when we are not here. And when the wicked woman got home, she went to her glass and said, "Looking glass against the wall, who's the fairest of us all?" And it answered as before, "Queen, thou art beauty rare, but Snow White, living in the glen with the 7 little men, is 1,000 times more fair." When she heard that, she was so struck with surprise that all the blood left her heart, for she knew that Snow White must be living. "But now," said she, "I will think of something that will be her ruin." And by witchcraft she made a poisoned comb, and then she dressed herself up to look like another different sort of old woman. So she went across the 7 mountains. Okay, so it's got to take time to go over these mountains. So Snow White could be about 10, 11 by now. She came to the house of the 7 dwarves and knocked at the door and cried, "Good wares to sell, good wares to sell." Snow White looked out and said, "Go away! Must not let anybody in." "But you are not forbidden to look," said the old woman, taking out the poisoned comb and holding it up. It pleased the poor child so much that she was tempted to open the door. And when the bargain was made, the old woman said, "Now for once, your hair shall be properly combed." Poor Snow White, thinking no harm, let the old woman do as she would, but no sooner was the comb put in her hair that the poison began to work, and the poor girl fell down senseless. "Now, you paragon of beauty," said the wicked woman, "this is the end of you." She went off. By good luck, it was now near evening, and the 7 little dwarfs came home. When they saw Snow White lying on the ground as dead, they thought directly that it was the stepmother's doing, and looked about, found the poisoned comb, and no sooner had they drawn it out of their hair that Snow White came to herself, and related all that had passed. Then they warned her once more to be on her guard, and never again to let anyone in at the door, and the queen went home, and stood before the looking-glass, and said, "Looking-glass against the wall, who's the fairest of us all?" And the looking-glass answered as before, "Queen, thou art of beauty rare, but Snow White, living in the glen with the 7 little men, is 1,000 times more fair." So she had to go back over the 7 mountains to get home. Can you imagine by the time she got back home, she thinks she's, got rid of this little twerp, and she hears she hasn't. So now she's got to go back across these mountains to do it again. This woman's peeved off by now. When she heard the looking-glass speak thus, she trembled and shook with anger. "Snow White shall die," cried she, though it should cost me my own life." And then she went to a secret, lonely chamber where no one else was likely to come, and there she made a poisoned apple. It was beautiful to look upon, being white with red cheeks, so that any who would see it must long for it, but whoever ate even a little bit of it must die. When the apple was ready, she painted her face and clothed herself like a peasant woman, and went across the 7 mountains to where the 7 dwarfs lived. When she knocked at the door, Snow White put her head out the window and said, "I dare not let anybody in. The 7 dwarfs told me not." "All right," answered the woman. "I can easily get rid of my apples elsewhere. There, we'll give you one." "No," answered Snow White. "I dare not take anything." "Are you afraid of poison?" said the woman. "Look here, I will cut the apple in 2 pieces." By now, Snow White's probably 12 or 13, because it took time to go back over the mountain and make the poison apple and all this whatnot. "You shall have the red side. And I shall have the white one." For the apple was so cunningly made that all the poison was in the rosy half of it. And Snow White longed for the beautiful apple, and as she saw the peasant woman eating a piece of it, she could no longer refrain, but stretched out a hand and took the poisoned half. But no sooner had she taken a morsel of it into her mouth than she fell to the earth as dead. And the queen, casting on her terrible glance, laughed aloud and cried, "As white as snow, and as red as blood, as black as ebony, this time the dwarves will not be able to bring you to life again." And when she went home and asked the looking-glass, "Looking glass against the wall, who's the fairest of us all?" at last it answered, "You are the fairest now of all." I gotta put stickers on these real quick. Oh, I don't. One of these is on the wrong spot. Boop. And then her envious heart had peace, as much as any envious heart can have. And the dwarves, when they came home in the evening, found Snow White lying on the ground, and there came no breath out of her mouth, and she was dead. They lifted her up, sought if anything poisonous was to be found, cut her laces, combed her hair, washed her with water and wine, but all was of no avail. The poor child was dead, and remained dead. Then they laid her on a briar, sat all 7 of them around it, and wept and lamented 3 whole days. And then they would have buried her, but that she looked still as if she were living, with her beautiful blooming cheeks. So they said, "We cannot hide her away in a black ground." And they had made a coffin of clear glass, so as to be looked into from all sides, and they laid her in, and wrote in golden letters upon it her name, and that she was a king's daughter. And then they set the coffin out upon the mountain, and one of them always remained by it to watch. And the birds came too in the morning for Snow White, first an owl, and then a raven, and lastly a dove. Now for the long while Snow White lay in the coffin and never changed, but looked as if she were asleep, for she was still as white as snow, and as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. It happened, however, that one day a king's son rode through the wood and up the dwarf's house, which was near it. He saw on the mountain the coffin and beautiful Snow White within it, and he read what was written in the golden letters upon it, and he said to the dwarves, "Let me have the coffin, and I will give you whatever you like to ask for it." The 7 dwarves told him that they could not part with it for all the gold in the world. But he said, "I beseech you to give it to me, for I cannot live without looking upon Snow White. If you consent, I will bring you to great honor and care for you as if you were my brethren." When he spoke, the good little dwarves had pity upon him, and gave him the coffin, and the king's son called his servants, and bid them carry it away on their shoulders. Now it was happened that, as they were going along, they stumbled over a bush. And when the shaking bit of poisoned apple flew out of her throat, it was not long before she opened her eyes, threw up the cover of the coffin, and sat up alive and well. "Oh dear, where am I?" cried she. The king's son answered full of joy, "You are near me." And relating all that had happened, he said, "I would rather have you than anything in the world. Come with me to my father's castle, and you shall be my bride." And Snow White was kind, and went with him. And their wedding was held with pomp and great splendor. But Snow White's wicked stepmother was also bidden to the feast. And when she had dressed herself in beautiful clothes, she went to her looking glass, and said, "Looking glass upon the wall, who is the fairest of us all?" And the looking glass answered, "O Queen, although you are of beauty rare, the young bride is 1,000 times more fair." And then she railed and cursed, and was beside herself with disappointment and anger. First she thought she would not go to the wedding, but then she felt she should have no peace until she went and saw the bride. And when she saw her, she knew her for Snow White, and could not stir from the place for anger and terror, for they had ready red-hot iron shoes in which she had to dance until she fell down dead. And that is the end of Snow White. From the Grimm Fairy Tale. Isn't that fabulous? They strapped hot, burning shoes on her feet and had her dance at the wedding of a... Snow White would have been like 13, 14. Probably. By the time that the prince found her. After she had spent years in the woods over these 7 mountains. Well, actually, okay, listen. If the huntsman took her into the woods when she was 7, and she ran and she ran and she ran. Oh, I'm missing a piece in there. Until she was exhausted. But she was over these 7 mountains. She was 7 when she took her in the woods. Maybe she ran, she became like 7.5. By the time she got to the cottage. 6 months had passed or whatever. She's living there. Queen eats her heart and asks the mirror. Tells her she's living in the glen, so she's probably 8. Wicked Witch goes out there, so she's 8.5, 9. 9.5, 10. Possibly, yeah. Anywhere from 10 to 14 she was when the prince married her. The prince was out with his hunting party? I didn't say, but... I'd read another one, but it would take me way longer to finish this. If I did. Ta-da! I can pull out. I'm going. Look at that. Would you look at that? Just look at it. Just look at that. Just look at that. Bag number 3. Finally get to Snow White and the apple. Almost done with my burrito. Hi, little me. Don't eat that apple. Throw it away, okay? Throw the apple away. Give it back to the witch. She should eat it. Look, there's little me. Ta-da! Ta-da!
Rain likely tomorrow. That's nice. Melt off some of the snow. More snow.
Yeah. Alright, there's another story that the Grimm Fairy Tales wrote about Snow White. Did you know that? Did you? My honey? Did you know that there's another Snow White story? It's not Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs that the Grimm Fairy Tales wrote, or that the Brothers Grimm wrote?
Nope.
I actually like the story better. It's called Snow White and Rose Red. My mom used to read this to me, and I had a stepsister at one time, and she said that my mom said that her and I, me and my stepsister, were Snow White and Rose Red. But that My stepsister in that one was Snow White, and I was Rose Red because of how they're described in the story. So, I'm going to read that one now. I think I got a little pot and a little cup. Oh, those are going to go on what I'm building. Alright, let me finish my burrito real quick because I'm craving it. Alright. There was once a poor widow who lived in a lonely cottage. In front of the cottage was a garden, whereas 2 rose trees stood. One was white, and the other was red roses. She had 2 children who were like the rose trees, and one was called Snow White, and the other Rose Red. They were good and happy, as busy and cheerful as ever 2 children in the world were. Only Snow White was more quiet and gentle than Rose Red. Rose Red liked better to run about in the meadows and fields seeking flowers and catching butterflies. But Snow White sat at home with her mother and helped her with her housework or read to her when there was nothing to do. The 2 children were so fond of each other that they always held each other by the hand when they went out together. Then Snow White said, "We will not leave each other." And Rose Red answered, "Never so long as we live." And their mother would add, "What one has, she must share with the other." Look, there's a little Snow White's little cottage area. They often ran about the forest alone and gathered red berries, and no beast did them any harm, but came close to them trustfully. And the little hare would eat a cabbage leaf out of their hands, and the roe grazed by their side, and the stag leapt merrily by them. And the birds sat still upon the boughs and sang whatever they knew. No mishap overtook them. If they had stayed too late in the forest and night came on, they laid themselves down near one another upon the moss and slept until morning came, and their mother knew this and had no distress on their account. Oh, wouldn't that be amazing? Once, when they had spent the night in the woods and the dawn had roused them, they saw a beautiful child in the shining white dress sitting near their bed, and he got up and looked quite kindly at them and said nothing and went away into the forest. When they looked round, they found that they had been sleeping quite close to a precipice, and would certainly have fallen into it in the darkness if they had gone only a few paces further. And their mother told them that it must have been the angel who watches over good children. Snow White and Rose Red kept their mother's little cottage so neat, and it was a pleasure to look inside it. In the summer, Rose Red took care of the house and every morning laid a wreath of flowers by her mother's bed before she woke, in which was a rose from each tree. And in the winter, Snow White lit the fire and hung the kettle on the wrekin. And the kettle was of copper and shone like gold, so brightly it was polished. And in the evening, when the snowflakes fell, the mother said, "Go, Snow White, and bolt the door." And when they sat round the hearth, and the mother took her spectacles and read aloud out of a large book, and the two girls listened as they sat and span. They were spinning yarn. And close by them lay a lamb upon the floor, and behind them upon a perch sat a white dove with its head hidden beneath its wings. This is telling you how pure and innocent these folks were. One evening, as they were thus sitting comfortably together, someone knocked at the door, as if he wished to be let in. Oh, missing piece. And the mother said, "Quick, Rose Red, open the door. It must be a traveler who is seeking shelter." And Rose Red went and pushed back the bolt, thinking it was a poor man, but it was not. It was a bear that stretched his broad black head within the door. Rose Red screamed and sprang back, and the lamb bleated, and the dove fluttered, and Snow White hid herself behind her mother's bed. But the bear began to speak and said, "Do not be afraid. I will not do you harm. I am half frozen and only want to warm myself a little beside you." "Poor bear," the mother said, "lie down by the fire. Only take care that you do not burn your coat." And then she cried, "Snow White, Rose Red, come out. The bear will not do you harm. He means well." So they both came out, and by the lamb and dove came nearer and were not afraid of him. And the bear said, "Here, children, knock the coat out, snow out of my coat a little." So they brought the broom and swept the bear's hide clean. And he stretched himself by the fire and growled contentedly and comfortably. It was not long before they grew quite at home and played tricks with their clumsy guest. They tugged his hair with their hands, putting their feet upon his back, and rolled him about, or they took a hazel switch and beat him. Then he growled, they laughed. But the bear took it all in good part. Only when they were too rough, he called out, "Leave me alive, children." "Snow White, Rose Red, will you beat your lover dead?" Weird, interesting wording. Well, we're on bag 4. When it was bedtime and the others went to bed, the mother said to the bear, "You can lie there by the hearth, and then you will be safe from the cold and the bad weather." And as soon as the day dawned, the two children let him out, and he trotted across the snow into the forest. Henceforth the bear came every evening at the same time, laid himself by the hearth, and let the children amuse themselves with him as much as they liked. And they got so used to him that the doors were never fastened until their black friend had arrived. He's a black bear. When spring had come, and all outside was green, the bear said one morning to Snow White, Now I must go away, and cannot come back for the whole summer." "Where are you going then, dear bear?" asked Snow White. I must go into the forest and guard my treasures from the wicked dwarves. In the winter, when the earth is frozen hard, they are obliged to stay below and cannot work through their way through. But now, when the sun has thawed and warmed the earth, they break through it, come out to pry and steal. And what once gets into their hands and in their caves does not easily see daylight again. Dwarves. He says, beware of dwarves. Snow White was quite sorry for him going away, and as she unbolted the door for him, the bear was hurrying out. He caught against the bolt, and a piece of his haircut was torn off. His hairy coat was torn off, and it seemed to Snow White as if she had seen gold shining through it. But she was not sure about it, and the bear ran away quickly and was soon out of sight behind the trees. A short time afterward, the mother sent her children into the forest to get firewood. There they found a big tree, which lay felled on the ground, and close by the trunk something was jumping backwards and forwards in the grass. But they could not make out what it was. When they came nearer, they saw a dwarf, with an old withered face and a snow-white beard, a yard long. The end of the beard was caught in a crevice of the tree, and the little fellow was jumping backwards and forward like a dog tied to a rope, and did not know what to do. And he glared at the girls with his fiery red eyes and cried, "Why do you stand there? Can you not come here and help me? What are you about, then?" "Oh, what are you about there, little man?" asked Rose Red. "You stupid prying goose," answered the dwarf. "I was going to split the tree to get a little wood for cooking, and a little bit of food that one of us wants to get burned up directly with thick logs. We do not swallow so much as you coarse, greedy folk. I had just driven the wedge safely in, and everything was going as I wished. But the wretched wood was too smooth, and suddenly sprang asunder, and the tree closed so quickly that I could not pull out my beautiful white beard. So now it is tight in, and I cannot get away, and the silly, sleek, milk-faced things laugh. Ugh! How odious you are!" The children tried very hard, but they could not pull the beard out, and it was quite too fast. "I will run and fetch someone," said Rose Red. "You senseless goose!" snarled the dwarf. "Why should you fetch someone? You're already too many for me. Can you not think of something better?" "Don't be impatient," said Snow White. "I will help you." And she pulled out her scissors out of her pocket and cut off the end of the beard. As soon as the dwarf felt himself free, he laid hold of a bag of which lay amongst the roots of the tree, and which was full of gold, and lifted it up, grumbled to himself, "Uncouth people, to cut off a piece of my fine beard! Bad luck to you!" And then he swung the bag upon his back and went off without even once looking at the children. Some time after that, Snow White and Rose Red went to catch a dish of fish. And as they came near, the brook, they saw something like a large grasshopper jumping towards the water, as if it were going to leap in. They ran to it and found it was the dwarf again. "Where are you going?" said Rose Red. "You surely don't want to go into the water." "I'm not such a fool!" cried the dwarf. "Don't you see that the cursed fish wants to pull me in?" The little man had been sitting there fishing, and unluckily the wind had twisted his beard with the fishing line. Just then a big fish had bit, and the feeble creature had not strength to pull it out. The fish kept the upper hand and pulled the dwarf toward him. He held on to all the reeds and rushes, but it was of all little good. He was forced to follow the movements of the fish, and was in urgent danger of being dragged into the water. The girls came just in time. They held him fast and tried to free his beard from the line. But all in vain. Beard and line were entangled fast together. Nothing was left but to bring out the scissors and cut the beard, whereby a small part of it was lost. Then the dwarf saw that he screamed out, "Is that civil, you toadstool, to defigure one's face? Was it not enough to clip off the end of my beard? Now you have to cut off the best part of it. I cannot let myself be seen by my people. I wish you had been made to run the soles off your shoes." Then he took out a sack of pearls which lay in the rushes, and without saying a word more, he dragged it away and disappeared behind a stone. It happened that soon afterwards the mother sent the two children to the town to buy needles and threads and lace and ribbons. The road led them across a heath upon which huge pieces of rock lay strewn here and there. Now they noticed a large bird hovering in the air, flying slowly round and round above them. It sank lower and lower, and at last settled near a rock not far off. Directly afterward, they heard a loud, piteous cry. They ran up and saw with horror that the eagle had seized their old acquaintance, the dwarf, and was going to carry him off. The children, full of pity, at once took tight hold of the little man, and pulled against the eagle so long that at last he let his booty go. As soon as the dwarf had recovered from his first fright, he cried with a shrill voice, "Could you not have done it more carefully? You dragged at my brown coat so that it's all torn and full of holes, you helpless, clumsy creatures." Then he took up a sack full of precious stones and slipped away again under the rock into his hole. The girls, who by this time were very used to his thanklessness, went on their way and did their business in town. As they crossed the heath again on their way home, heath, by the way, is a hill covered in heather, which is a plant. On their way home, they surprised the dwarf. He had emptied out his bag of precious stones in a clean spot and had not thought that anyone would come there so late. The evening sun shone upon the brilliant stones. They glittered and sparkled with colors so beautifully that the children stood still and looked at them. "Why do you stand there gaping there?" cried the little dwarf, and his ashen gray face became copper red with rage. He was going on with his bad words when a loud growling was heard, and a black bear came trotting towards them out of the forest, and the dwarf sprang up in a fright, but he could not get to his cave, for the bear was already close. Then, in the dread of his heart, he heard, "Dear Mr. Bear, spare me. I will give you all." In the dread of his heart, he cried. He didn't hear. He cried, "Dear Mr. Bear, spare me. I will give you all my treasures. Look, the beautiful jewels lying there. Grant me my life. What do you want with such a slender little fellow as I?" You could not feel me between your teeth. Come, take these 2 wicked girls. They are tender morsels for you. Fat as young quails. For mercy's sake, eat them. The bear took no heed of his words, but gave the wicked creature a single blow with his paw, and he did not move again. The girls had run away, but the bear called to them, Snow White and Rose Red, do not be afraid. Wait, I will come with you. And then they knew his voice and waited. And when he came up to them, suddenly his bear skin fell off, and he stood there, a handsome man, clothed all in gold. I am a king's son, he said, and I was bewitched by that wicked dwarf who had stolen my treasures. Oh, last bag. I have had to run about the forest as a savage bear until I was freed by his death. Now he has got his well-deserved punishment. Snow White was married to him, and Rose Red to his brother. And they divided between them the great treasure which the dwarf had gathered together in his cave, and the old mother lived peacefully and happily with her children for many years. She took the 2 rose trees with her, and they stood before her window, and every year bore the most beautiful roses, white and red. The end. So of the 2 Snow White stories, which do you like best?
First one.
Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs?
Yeah.
Is that just because you have an affinity towards dwarves and you like them to look good, not bad? Hmm?
I don't know, it's just a familiar story.
I remember watching like a horror version of Snow White, but I don't remember what it's called anymore. I guess I could look it up. But it was like dark and really cool though. But at the end I do remember her having to wear like the hot shoes and dancing until she died. She died. All the music is gone. So I can restart it.
Humanity's first priest,
Ooh.
second ranked win.
Oh, nice.
I can't beat Death Knight's blue deck. It's too bad.
Hi, Sam. Sorry. And nice, honey. What? Why are you unlucky?
Because the 2 cards I mulliganed, right? I mulliganed 2 cards, and then I get 3 cards if you go first. First one I top decked was the card I mulliganed. And the next turn was the other card I mulliganed. So it just gave me back both my top decks. I mean, both my mulligans.
Yeah, that's. I hate it when it does
Considering I
that.
only have one of each of those cards.
You know how I like kept beating you last night? Well, when I went to go play online, I kept losing. I only won like 1 match, maybe 2. Like, I don't get it. I can beat you, but I can't beat anybody else. The fuck?
I suck. Now I'm playing a Tempo Rush Shaman, and it's giving me my top 3 top decks are all 9 cost cards, so I just can't do anything. Unlucky. I swear it kind of does this on purpose. Like the game will like intentionally like I shift around the deck to be a little bit more mana heavy because I was running into ramp decks that were just too strong. But now it's giving me all these.
It's like when you alter it, it like
it
does
intentionally
yeah.
gives you to show you like, hey, by the way, you have too many expensive cards in your deck.
Yeah. Then it's like, oh, well, you thought you were right, but now you no, we're gonna show
That's
you.
what it feels
Yeah,
like.
you're wrong.
That's what it feels like, you know.
We're gonna alter ourselves to fuck you over.
Like I had no business winning the last game, but I got really lucky.
Ta-da! See it? See it?
And these kind of shaman decks are like that.
You're not even watching.
I'm watching it. It flips open. I'm seeing little book.
It's a jewelry box. Ta-da!
Holy Nova. My gosh.
Now I'm gonna make the little sword. Ta-da! It's like a little miniature Polly Pocket
Yeah.
jewelry box. Thanks for being with us, folks. We'll see you next time.